Why did God seem so cruel in the Old Testament? Have you ever read a story in the Bible and thought, how could a loving God do something like that? Whole cities destroyed, fires from the sky, floods wiping out humanity, wars, innocent people, dying. Sometimes it feels like there are two different gods, one who loves and another who punishes with no mercy. Did God change from the Old Testament to the New, or is there something deeper going on here, something most people never see? Today, we're going to dig into one of the Bible's greatest mysteries, and by the end of this video, you might never see God the same way again. Welcome to Arquivos Sagrados USA. Here, we don't stop at the surface, we go deep. We uncover what's been buried. We shine light on the stories that got lost in time, and we tell it in a way anyone can understand. This channel was made for people like you, people who are curious, people who want more than religion, people who feel there's something greater out there but don't know where to start. In every video, we dive into powerful messages, forgotten characters, hidden meanings, and divine decisions that shaped everything. So, if you're looking for real answers, truth without filters, and a journey into the unknown, hit that subscribe button, grab your popcorn. Your video starts now. Chapter 1. The Dilemma Nobody Talks About. When you read the Old Testament, it can feel like God is two different people. One moment he's rescuing his people, and the next, he's sending plagues or commanding a city to be wiped out. That's confusing. It feels like love and cruelty in the same person. So what's going on? Did God change, or are we missing something big? Even in the early days of Christianity, people struggled with this. A man named Marcion, around 140 AD, said the God of the Old Testament was evil, and that Jesus came to show us the real God, the God of love. But that idea was rejected because it's not that God changed, it's that we didn't fully understand how he was working. And today, we're going to explore the real reasons behind the Old Testament's harshest stories. Chapter 2. The world was much worse than you think. To understand why God acted the way he did in the Old Testament, you need to understand the world back then. Today we have laws, police, schools, hospitals, and rights. But back then, none of that existed. It was a brutal world. Tribes fought for land. People killed over food. Kings bragged about torturing their enemies. Women were property, and babies were burned alive in rituals to false gods. It was pure darkness, and into that world came God. He didn't speak with flowers and soft words. Not in that environment. He had to speak a language the people understood: power, judgment, and survival. But here's what most people don't notice. Even in all that darkness, God was already doing something new. He started to bring laws that were way ahead of their time. Chapter 3. Harsh laws that were actually mercy. Yes, God gave tough laws, but compared to the other nations around Israel, they were actually full of mercy. Let's take the famous eye for an eye law. It wasn't about revenge, it was about limiting revenge. Instead of killing someone over a single injury, the punishment had to be equal to the harm. That was progress. Slaves in Israel had rights. They got rest days, and after 6 years, they were set free, with resources to start over, stealing people to sell them as slaves, punishable by death. God also gave protection to widows, orphans, and foreigners. That was unheard of in that time. So yes, God's laws were strong, but they were pulling people out of cruelty. They were teaching a broken society to respect life. And sometimes, the only way to teach that was with strength. Chapter 4. When God judged, he waited first. Here's something people forget. Before God ever judged a city or a people, he always gave them time. He warned them, he waited, he gave chances. Let's talk about the flood. Before the rain ever started, God gave the people years, maybe decades, to change. Noah was preaching, warning them, building the ark in plain sight. But nobody listened. The world had become unbearable. Violence, abuse, and corruption everywhere. So God hit reset. It wasn't cruelty. It was the only way to stop everything from getting worse. Same thing with Sodom and Gomorrah. These cities were filled with injustice, violence, and perversion. God told Abraham what was coming, and Abraham begged, "If there are 10 good people, will you spare the city?" And God said, "Yes, I will." But not even 10 could be found. God doesn't enjoy punishment, but he also won't ignore evil. And that brings us to the hardest part of all. Chapter 5, the hardest question. Why did God order entire nations to be destroyed? This is the hardest part. It's where most people get stuck. Why would God command the destruction of whole nations? Men, women, even children. That sounds like genocide. But here's what you need to understand. The people living in those lands, like the Canaanites, were not just different. They were unbelievably corrupt. They practiced child sacrifice. They had temples filled with sexual abuse. They worshipped idols through cruelty, violence, and blood. And God, he didn't just snap his fingers one day and decide to destroy them. He waited for centuries. He gave them time, warnings, opportunities, but nothing changed. And even then, some were spared, some fled, some surrendered. People like Rahab from Jericho were saved and even became part of the story of Jesus. Also, some Bible scholars believe the phrase "destroy them all" was a common military expression of that time, not always meant to be taken literally. In fact, other parts of the Bible say that many of those nations survived and kept living nearby. So the point wasn't cruelty, it was about removing the root of evil so that God's people could start something new. Chapter 6. Did God change in the New Testament? Some people think God was harsh in the Old Testament, but Jesus made him nicer. But that's not what happened. God never changed. What changed was how he dealt with the world. In the Old Testament, God had to deal with people in a brutal, violent age. In the New Testament, he was ready to speak to hearts, to show love, grace, and healing. Jesus didn't come to erase what God had done. He came to show who God truly is. Compassionate, but still just. Merciful, but never blind to evil. Jesus didn't ignore sin. He chose to conquer it with love and gave his life so we could have a new beginning. Chapter 7. God still judges today, but in a different way. Does God still judge people today? Yes, but not always with floods or fire. Now, God often judges by letting us live out the consequences of our own choices. He speaks through our conscience, through closed doors, through silence. He also shows mercy every day, maybe more than you realize. How? Many times have you been protected from something terrible and didn't even know? God's justice never disappeared. It just became more patient, more personal, more internal. But one day, the patience will run out and everyone will answer for their story. Conclusion. Was God ever cruel? So, was God really cruel, or were we just looking at the story through the wrong lens? The same God who destroyed cities also waited generations before doing so. The same God who punished sin cried when his people rejected him, and the same God who demanded justice came down, suffered, and died out of love. God was never cruel. God was always intense, intense in his love, intense in his justice. What scares us might not be what he did. It might be that he truly sees all evil for what it is and doesn't let it win. That kind of God doesn't play games, and he doesn't give up either. Do you like this video? Now I want to hear from you. Do you think God still judges the world today like he did back then, or does he work in other ways now? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every one, and if this video opened your mind or made you see things in a new way, Subscribe to Arquivos Sagrados now, because in the next video, we're diving into a story that's even more intense than this one. See you there.